A little girl, barely 8 years old, standing on a makeshift stage in a dimly lit bar somewhere in northern Ontario, Canada. It's past midnight. The smell of cigarette smoke and stale beer fills the air. Most kids her age are tucked safely in their beds, dreaming innocent dreams. But not this girl. She's clutching a microphone that's almost too big for her tiny hands, singing her heart out to a crowd of late-night drinkers who probably couldn't care less. Her stomach is growling because she hasn't eaten a proper meal in days. Her clothes are worn and don't fit quite right. But when she opens her mouth and lets that voice soar through the murky atmosphere, something magical happens. For just a moment, all the pain, all the hunger, all the fear melts away. This wasn't just any little girl singing in bars to help her family survive. This was Shania Twain, the woman who would one day become the best-selling female artist in country music history, selling over 100 million records worldwide. But the journey from that smoke-filled bar to superstardom is filled with stories that will absolutely shock you, heartbreaks that would have destroyed most people, and a resilience so extraordinary that it defies belief. So buckle up, because what you're about to discover about Shania Twain's life will leave you speechless. And by the time we're done, you'll understand why her story is one of the most incredible comebacks in music history. Let's start at the very beginning, because Shania's origin story is nothing like what you might expect from someone who would become one of the most glamorous figures in country music. Born Eileen Regina Edwards on August 28, 1965, in Windsor, Ontario, Shania came into a world that was already fractured and difficult. Her biological father, Clarence Edwards, and her mother, Sharon Morrison, had a relationship that was turbulent from the start. When Shania was just 2 years old, Sharon left Clarence and moved her young daughter to Timmins, Ontario, a small mining town in the northern part of the province where winter temperatures could drop to bone-chilling lows and opportunities were about as scarce as warm sunshine in February. In Timmins, Sharon met Jerry Twain, an Ojibwe Indian who worked odd jobs and struggled with his own demons. Jerry adopted Shania when she was 4 years old, and she took his last name. But what seemed like the formation of a stable family was anything but. The household was chaotic, violent, and desperately poor. Shania has spoken about witnessing domestic violence between her mother and stepfather from a very young age, describing scenes that would traumatize any child. She's been remarkably candid about the abuse she suffered, revealing in interviews years later that Jerry was physically violent and that there were instances of sexual abuse as well. Can you imagine being a small child in that environment, never knowing when the next explosion of violence would occur, never feeling safe even in your own home? The poverty they lived in was crushing and relentless. There were times when there simply wasn't enough food, and Shania would go to school hungry, her stomach cramping and growling throughout her classes. She's recalled how difficult it was to concentrate on her lessons when she was so hungry that it hurt. But here's something that shows you the depth of Shania's character even as a child. She never told school authorities about her situation because she was terrified they would break up the family. Despite all the dysfunction, despite the violence and the hunger, she felt a sense of loyalty and didn't want her siblings to be scattered into foster care. So she suffered in silence, shouldering burdens that no child should ever have to carry. But amidst all this darkness, there was one shining light, one thing that gave young Eileen a sense of purpose and an escape from the nightmare of her daily reality. Music. Her mother recognized early on that her daughter had an extraordinary gift. By the age of 3, Shania was already singing. By 8, she was playing guitar. And by 10, she was writing her own songs, pouring all those complicated emotions, all that pain and longing and hope into melodies and lyrics that were far beyond her years. Sharon, despite all her own struggles and the chaos of their household, was determined that her daughter's talent wouldn't go to waste. And this is where the story takes a turn that's both inspiring and heartbreaking. Sharon started taking Shania to local bars and clubs around Timmins in the middle of the night, long after the establishments were supposed to close. The owners would let this little girl come in and perform for whatever rough crowd remained. Picture it, an 8-year-old child, who should be sound asleep in her bed, instead standing on a bar stage singing country songs to drunk adults at 1 and 2 in the morning. Shania has talked about how surreal and sometimes frightening this was, but it was also necessary. The family needed whatever money those performances could bring in. Every dollar helped put food on the table, helped keep the lights on, helped them survive one more week. These late-night bar performances did something else too. They toughened Shania up and gave her stage experience that most aspiring singers never get. She learned how to command a room, how to win over skeptical audiences, how to push through exhaustion and fear to deliver a performance. She learned that show business wasn't glamorous or easy. It was hard work, sometimes uncomfortable, often unglamorous, but when you connected with that music and shared it with others, something transcendent could happen. These lessons, learned in smoky Canadian bars before she was even a teenager, would serve her incredibly well in the years to come. But performing in bars wasn't Shania's only job as a child. As soon as she was old enough, she took on whatever work she could find. One of her first legitimate jobs was at McDonald's, working the drive-through window and the fry station. Now, this might not sound particularly noteworthy. Lots of teenagers work at fast food restaurants. But for Shania, this job represented something important. It was honest work, it was legal, it didn't require her to be in potentially dangerous situations in bars in the middle of the night. She's spoken fondly about her time at McDonald's, saying she genuinely enjoyed working the fries station and learning customer service skills. Little did anyone know that the cheerful teenage girl handing you your Big Mac and fries would one day become an international superstar. But even then, Shania was learning the value of hard work, humility, and treating every person with respect and kindness regardless of your station in life. Beyond McDonald's, Shania worked in her stepfather's reforestation business, doing backbreaking manual labor planting trees in the harsh Canadian wilderness. She did this for 6 months out of every year between the ages of 17 and 21. This was grueling, physically demanding work that required long hours outdoors in all kinds of weather, but it helped the family finances, and Shania never complained. This work ethic, this willingness to do whatever it takes, this refusal to see any honest job as beneath her, these qualities would define Shania throughout her career and life. Throughout these teenage years, even as she worked multiple jobs and helped support her family, Shania never lost sight of her dream. She continued to perform whenever and wherever she could, continued to write songs, continued to believe that somehow, someday, music would be her way out. She started performing at local community events, talent shows, anywhere that would have her. Her talent was undeniable. That voice, powerful, distinctive, able to shift from vulnerable and tender to strong and commanding, was unlike anything people in Timmins had heard before. Then, in 1987, when Shania was just 21 years old, her world was shattered in a way that's almost too painful to comprehend. Her mother Sharon and her stepfather Jerry were killed in a car accident. In one horrible instant, Shania lost both her parents. But here's where Shania's character really reveals itself. Instead of falling apart, instead of focusing on her own grief and trauma, she immediately stepped up to care for her younger siblings. Her brother Mark was still in his teens, and there were other siblings who needed stability and care. Shania, barely an adult herself, still processing the trauma of her childhood and now the devastating loss of her parents, put her music career dreams on hold and became the parent. She took various jobs to support the family, including a singing gig at a resort in Huntsville, Ontario, where she performed in a Vegas-style show. This wasn't exactly the country music career she dreamed of, but it paid the bills and allowed her to keep her siblings together and cared for. Can you imagine the strength that took? At an age when most people are just figuring out their own lives, going to college, starting careers, having fun and being irresponsible, Shania was raising her siblings, working multiple jobs, and somehow still holding on to the dream that music would eventually be her life. This period lasted for several years, and it wasn't until her siblings were old enough to take care of themselves that Shania felt she could finally pursue her own dreams without guilt. By the early 1990s, now approaching 30 years old, Shania decided it was time to take a shot at a real music career. She put together a demo tape of her original songs and sent it to record labels. After facing rejection after rejection, because that's how the music business works, even for the incredibly talented, she finally caught the attention of Mercury Nashville Records. In 1993, she released her self-titled debut album, Shania Twain. The album was fine, solid country music with some nice songs, but it didn't exactly set the world on fire. It received modest attention, sold okay but not spectacularly, and Shania might have become just another artist with one album to their name who faded into obscurity. But then something happened that would change everything. She met a man named Robert John Lang, known in the music industry as Mutt Lange. Now, Mutt Lange wasn't just any music producer. This was the man who had produced some of the biggest rock albums of the 80s, working with AC/DC, Def Leppard, and other massive acts. He had an incredible ear for crafting hits, for blending different musical styles, for production techniques that made songs sound huge and radio-ready. When he heard Shania's music, he was immediately captivated, both by her voice and, as it would turn out, by her. Their professional collaboration began in 1993, when Mutt offered to produce Shania's next album. But their relationship quickly became romantic as well. Despite a 17-year age gap, Mutt was 51 and Shania was 28 when they met. They fell hard and fast for each other. By December of 1993, just months after meeting, they were married. It seemed like a fairy tale, the struggling artist from poverty and tragedy finding both love and professional mentorship with one of the most successful producers in the world. And professionally, it absolutely was a fairy tale. Together, Shania and Mutt created magic in the studio. He pushed her to blend country with pop and rock elements in ways that country music had never really done before. He crafted productions that were polished and contemporary while still respecting country music's storytelling traditions. And Shania, for her part, wrote songs that were catchy, emotionally resonant, and empowering. In 1995, they released The Woman in Me, and this album was a game-changer. It sold over 4 million copies in its first year. It spawned massive hits like Any Man of Mine, which showcased Shania's personality, fun, feisty, confident, not willing to settle for less than she deserved. The album eventually sold over 20 million copies worldwide and earned Shania her first Grammy Award. But they were just getting started. In 1997, Shania and Mutt released Come On Over, and this album didn't just succeed. It exploded into the stratosphere and redefined what was possible for a country album. Come On Over became the best-selling studio album by a female artist in any genre and the best-selling country album of all time. Let that sink in for a moment. Over 40 million copies sold worldwide. 40 million. The album produced hit after hit after hit. You're Still the One, a gorgeous love song that topped both country and pop charts. Man, I Feel Like a Woman, an anthem of female empowerment that became Shania's signature song and a cultural phenomenon. That Don't Impress Me Much, with its sarcastic, funny take on dating that everyone could relate to. From this moment on, a wedding favorite that probably gets played at hundreds of ceremonies every single weekend. The album spent an astonishing 2 years in the top 10 of the Billboard charts. 2 years. Shania became a global superstar. Her tours sold out arenas and stadiums. Her music videos, which showcased her stunning looks and natural charisma, were in constant rotation on CMT and VH1. She won Grammy Awards. She broke records. She influenced an entire generation of country and pop artists who came after her. Taylor Swift has cited Shania as a major influence. Carrie Underwood, Casey Musgraves, Maren Morris, and countless others have talked about how Shania showed them that a country artist could cross over to pop without losing authenticity, could be sexy and strong without being diminished, could write their own songs and control their own destiny. In 2002, Shania released Up, another ambitious album that came in 3 versions: country, pop, and international, allowing fans to choose their preferred style. While it didn't quite match the astronomical success of Come On Over, it still sold 20 million copies worldwide and produced several hit singles. By this point, Shania was at the absolute peak of her career and fame. She had everything most people dream of: massive success, wealth, a seemingly strong marriage to a man she loved and collaborated with. And in 2001, she and Mutt had a son, Aja, who became the center of her world. But here's the thing about life: it can change in an instant. Just when you think you have everything figured out, just when you think you're safe and secure, the rug can be pulled out from under you in the most devastating way. And for Shania, that's exactly what happened, except it wasn't just one rug being pulled out. It was multiple disasters hitting almost simultaneously, each one threatening to destroy everything she'd built. The first blow came from something invisible, something she didn't even know was happening until the damage was done. In 2003, Shania was on tour, performing for massive crowds night after night. And she started noticing something troubling. Her voice wasn't working right. She would try to hit notes that should have been easy for her and couldn't quite get there. She felt like she was losing control of her breathing, couldn't manage her airflow the way she always had. For a singer, this is absolutely terrifying. Your voice is your instrument, your livelihood, your identity in so many ways. When it starts failing, It feels like your whole world is collapsing. Shania pushed through, thinking maybe she was just tired, maybe she needed rest. But it kept getting worse. After the tour ended, she tried to record new music and found that she simply couldn't sing the way she used to. She went from doctor to doctor, desperately seeking answers. Some thought it might be psychological, maybe stress or performance anxiety. Others suggested various treatments that didn't help. For years, nobody could figure out what was wrong, and Shania watched helplessly as her voice, the gift that had saved her from poverty and given her an extraordinary life, seemed to be slipping away forever. Finally, after years of searching, doctors discovered the cause. Shania had been bitten by a tick, probably during one of those long days working outdoors in the reforestation business years earlier, and had contracted Lyme disease. The disease had gone undiagnosed and untreated long enough that it caused permanent nerve damage to her vocal cords. The doctors told her she might never sing again. Read that again. The best-selling female artist in country music history was told she might never sing again. The devastation was almost incomprehensible. Shania fell into a deep depression. She retreated from public life. For someone who had overcome so much poverty, abuse, tragedy, and worked so incredibly hard to achieve her dreams, to have it all taken away by a tiny tick bite seemed unbearably cruel. But wait, the story gets even worse, because while Shania was dealing with this health crisis and potential career-ending diagnosis, her personal life was about to implode in the most dramatic and painful way imaginable. In 2008, Shania discovered that her husband Mutt was having an affair. But not just any affair. He was involved with her best friend, Marianne Thibault, who also happened to be Shania's personal assistant and someone she trusted implicitly. Let's pause and really absorb how devastating this betrayal was. Shania had been married to Mutt for 15 years. He wasn't just her husband. He was her creative partner, the co-writer and producer of all her biggest hits, the person she trusted more than anyone with her music and her heart. She had supported his reclusiveness and his difficult personality because she believed in their love and their partnership. And Marianne wasn't just an employee. She was Shania's confidant, someone she shared her deepest thoughts and feelings with, someone she trusted with intimate details of her life and marriage. Finding out that these two people, the two she trusted most in the world, had been betraying her together was devastating on a level that's hard to even articulate. Shania has said she became uncontrollably fragile during this period. She would have panic attacks. She couldn't sleep. She lost an unhealthy amount of weight. Everything she thought she knew about her life and the people in it was revealed to be a lie. At first, Mutt and Marianne denied the affair, but eventually the truth came out and was undeniable. Shania's marriage was over. Her longest friendship was destroyed, and she was left to pick up the pieces while simultaneously dealing with the loss of her voice and wondering if her career was finished. This is the point where many people would have given up entirely. Can you imagine facing all of that at once? Losing your voice, your career, your marriage, your best friend, all within the span of a few years? The isolation, the betrayal, the sheer weight of loss would crush most people. But Shania, who had survived poverty and abuse and the loss of her parents, who had kept her siblings together through sheer force of will, who had worked tirelessly for decades to achieve her dreams, wasn't going to let even this destroy her. Here's where the story takes a turn that's so unexpected and bizarre that if you read it in a novel, you'd think it was unrealistic. Remember Marianne, the best friend who betrayed Shania by having an affair with Mutt? Well, Marianne was married to a man named Frederick Thibault. And Frederick, upon discovering his wife's affair, was just as devastated and blindsided as Shania. In the aftermath of their respective betrayals, Shania and Frederick found themselves connecting over their shared pain and heartbreak. They understood each other in a way nobody else could because they were going through the exact same nightmare. That friendship eventually, gradually, turned into something more. In 2011, 3 years after the affair was revealed, Shania and Frederick got married. That's right, Shania married her ex-best friend's ex-husband. The two people betrayed found love with each other. Some people might see this as a revenge story, but Shania has always insisted it's not that at all. She said that what she and Frederick share is real and deep, born from understanding, compassion, and finding light in the darkest time of both their lives. They helped each other heal. They built something genuine and lasting from the rubble of their destroyed marriages. And by all accounts, their marriage is strong and happy. Frederick has been supportive of Shania in every way, and she credits him with helping her find herself again. As for Mutt and Marianne, reports indicate they're still together, though they maintain a low profile. Shania has said that while she's found peace and moved forward, she hasn't maintained any relationship with Marianne and likely never will. The betrayal was simply too deep, too complete. With Mutt, she maintains cordial communications solely for the sake of co-parenting their son Aja, but nothing beyond that. She's been remarkably mature and gracious when discussing the affair in interviews, often saying that while it was Mutt's mistake to make and his burden to carry, she doesn't hate him because holding on to hatred would only poison her own life. But what about her voice? What about her career? Those questions still loomed large. Shania underwent open-throat surgery to try to repair some of the damage the Lyme disease had caused. It was a risky procedure, and there were no guarantees it would work. The surgery couldn't completely restore her voice to what it had been before. Some of the nerve damage was permanent. But it did improve things enough that she could sing again, though in a different way than before. She had to relearn her technique, had to find new ways to control her breathing and hit notes, had to accept that her voice would never be exactly what it once was. In 2011, the same year she married Frederick, Shania released a new album called Now. It had been 15 years since her last album of new material. 15 years during which she'd lost her voice, divorced, remarried, undergone surgery, and fought her way back from the brink. The album was deeply personal, reflecting all she'd been through. While it didn't match the commercial heights of her late 90s albums, frankly, few albums by anyone do, it was critically well received and showed the world that Shania Twain was back and wasn't going to let anything keep her down. She embarked on a residency in Las Vegas, performing regularly at Caesar's Palace. The residency was enormously successful, selling out shows consistently and reminding everyone why Shania had become a superstar in the first place. Yes, her voice was different, but the charisma, the stage presence, the connection with the audience, the incredible catalog of hits, all of that was still there and perhaps even more powerful because of everything she'd survived. Fans didn't just come to hear the songs. They came to celebrate her resilience, to witness her triumph over tragedy. In 2018, Shania released another album, Now, and embarked on a world tour. She was in her 50s by this point, decades removed from her commercial peak, and yet she was selling out arenas and stadiums around the world. The tour was a massive success, grossing over $100 million and proving that Shania's fanbase hadn't forgotten her or abandoned her. If anything, they loved her more because of what she'd overcome. What makes Shania's story so compelling isn't just the success. Lots of artists have successful careers. What makes it extraordinary is the combination of the poverty and abuse she overcame, the loss of her parents and the responsibilities she shouldered, the heights of success she achieved, the catastrophic betrayals and health crises that threatened to destroy everything, and then the incredible resilience and determination with which she fought back and reclaimed her life and career. Most people would have quit at any one of those low points. Shania faced them all and kept going. She's been remarkably open about her struggles, which is another thing that makes her special. Many celebrities try to maintain a perfect image, hiding their pain and struggles behind public relations machines and carefully managed personas. Shania has done the opposite. She's talked candidly about the abuse in her childhood, about the poverty and hunger, about the devastating betrayal of her husband and best friend, about the terror of losing her voice, about the depression and anxiety and panic attacks. In doing so, she's given hope and inspiration to countless people facing their own struggles. She's shown that it's possible to survive the unsurvivable, to come back from losses that seem unbearable, to rebuild your life even when everything has fallen apart. There are so many other fascinating details about Shania's life that deserve mention. Did you know that her name, Shania, is Ojibwe for "I'm on my way"? She adopted it as her stage name as a tribute to her stepfather Jerry's heritage and as a statement of intent for her career. Did you know that despite selling over 100 million albums, she never actually had a #1 single on the Billboard Hot 100? Her biggest hits peaked at #2 or 4, but in terms of longevity and cultural impact, they've outlasted many songs that did hit #1. Did you know that she struggled with severe stage fright throughout her career, despite performing in bars since she was 8 years old? She's talked about having to battle anxiety before performances, about the physical symptoms of fear she experienced even at the height of her success. Her influence on country music cannot be overstated. Before Shania, country music had fairly rigid boundaries. There was the traditional country sound, steel guitars, fiddles, lyrics about trucks and beer and heartbreak. And there was pop music, which was a completely different world. Shania, with Mutt's production help, created a hybrid that respected country's roots while incorporating pop and rock elements in a way that felt natural rather than forced. She proved that you could sell millions of albums and fill stadiums while still being considered a country artist. She paved the way for the entire modern country pop genre that dominates country music today. She also changed what it meant to be a female country artist. Before Shania, there were certainly successful female country singers: Dolly Parton, Reba McEntire, Patsy Cline. But Shania brought a new level of glamour, sexuality, and confidence to the genre. Her music videos were events. Man, I feel like a woman with its playful, empowered sexuality, or That Don't Impress Me Much with its unique aesthetic, became cultural touchstones. She showed that a woman in country music could be sexy, powerful, funny, vulnerable, strong, and successful all at once. She didn't have to choose between being taken seriously and being attractive. She could be both and more. Her songwriting also deserves more credit than it sometimes gets. While Mutt co-wrote many of her biggest hits, Shania was always an equal partner in the writing process. Her lyrics had a conversational, relatable quality that made them feel like they came from real-life experience, because they did. Songs like You're Still the One, which she wrote about her relationship with Mutt and the critics who didn't think they'd last, have a sincerity and emotional depth that comes from truth. The irony, of course, is that despite the song's promise that they would stay together despite what everyone said, the relationship didn't last. But that doesn't diminish the song's power or the genuine emotion that was there when she wrote it. Looking at Shania's life from a distance, you can see that music truly saved her. It was her escape from poverty, her way to help support her family, her ticket out of Timmins, her career, her identity. When she lost her voice, she lost not just her livelihood, but a fundamental part of who she was. That she fought so hard to get it back, even knowing it would never be quite the same, shows the depth of her connection to music and performance. She didn't want to go out that way, defeated by disease and betrayal. She needed to reclaim what was hers, to prove to herself and the world that she was still Shania Twain, still the woman who had overcome impossible odds before and could do it again. Today, Shania is in her late 50s and still active. She continues to perform, to record, to appear in the public eye. She's become an elder stateswoman of country music, someone newer artists look to for guidance and inspiration. She's also become a symbol of resilience and survival, someone who represents the possibility of overcoming trauma and rebuilding your life no matter how many times it gets destroyed. Her son Aja, now in his 20s, has largely stayed out of the public eye, which Shania has always been protective about. She said that being a mother is her most important role, more important than any award or album sale. Despite her incredibly difficult childhood, or perhaps because of it, she was determined to give Aja a stable, loving, safe upbringing, and by all accounts she succeeded. Her relationship with Frederick continues to be strong. They split their time between Switzerland and the Bahamas, enjoying a quieter life than the frenetic pace of Shania's peak fame years. She's spoken about how much she values the peace and stability of this phase of her life, how after all the chaos and heartbreak and struggle, she's finally found a place of contentment and security. But Shania's story isn't over. She continues to create, to perform, to surprise us. In recent years, she's embraced social media and connected with both longtime fans and new generations who are discovering her music. She's worked with younger artists, lending her experience and star power to help others. She's explored acting opportunities, documentary projects, and other creative ventures beyond just music. The hunger that drove that 8-year-old girl singing in bars, the determination that helped her survive abuse and poverty and loss, the resilience that brought her back from career-ending illness and devastating betrayal. All of that is still there, still driving her forward. What's the takeaway from Shania Twain's remarkable life story? Perhaps it's that your circumstances don't have to define you. Shania could have remained trapped in poverty in Timmins. She could have let the abuse and trauma of her childhood destroy her. She could have given up after her parents died, and she had to raise her siblings. She could have accepted being a one-album artist who faded away. She could have been destroyed by Lyme disease or by her husband's betrayal. At any of these points, she could have quit, and nobody would have blamed her. But she didn't. She kept fighting, kept believing, kept working, kept surviving. Or maybe the lesson is about the power of transformation and reinvention. Eileen became Shania. The poor girl from Timmins became the queen of country pop. The singer who lost her voice found it again, different but still powerful. The betrayed wife found love again with someone unexpected. The traumatized child became an empowered woman. Nothing about Shania's life was set in stone. She kept evolving, adapting, transforming herself in response to whatever life threw at her. Or perhaps the real message is simpler, that resilience is the most valuable quality a person can possess. Talent matters. Hard work matters. Opportunity matters. But resilience, the ability to get knocked down and get back up, to face devastating losses and keep going, to endure unimaginable pain and still find reasons to hope. That's what ultimately determines success in life. Shania Twain is talented, absolutely. But there are lots of talented people who never achieve anything close to what she has. What sets her apart is that bone-deep, indomitable resilience that simply will not accept defeat. When you listen to Shania's music now, knowing everything she went through, it hits different. You're Still the One isn't just a pretty love song. It's a statement of survival against odds and critics and doubters. Man, I Feel Like a Woman isn't just a fun anthem. It's a celebration of claiming your power and identity after being made to feel small and worthless. From This Moment On isn't just a wedding song. It's a promise to yourself to keep believing in love and hope even after everything you believed in was destroyed. The music takes on layers of meaning when you understand the life behind it. And those rare photos we see of young Shania, before the fame and success, before the platinum albums and sold-out stadiums, they tell a story that's almost unbelievable. That skinny kid with hunger in her eyes and a voice that could shake the walls of a small-town bar. That teenager working at McDonald's and planting trees and helping to raise her siblings. That young woman sending out demo tapes and refusing to give up on an impossible dream. You can see in those old photographs the determination, the spark, the refusal to accept that her circumstances would be her destiny. The entertainment industry is littered with cautionary tales. Artists who achieved massive success only to lose it all to addiction, depression, bad decisions, or simply being unable to handle the pressures of fame. Shania's story is the opposite. She's someone who overcame every possible obstacle, achieved extraordinary success, lost nearly everything, and then fought her way back to reclaim her life and legacy on her own terms. That's not a cautionary tale. That's an inspiration. As we wrap up this deep dive into Shania Twain's life, think about the journey we've traveled together. From those dingy bars in Timmins where an 8-year-old girl with a huge voice sang for drunk strangers in the middle of the night, through the poverty and abuse and loss, through the McDonald's drive-through window and the reforestation cruise, through that first album that nobody paid much attention to, through the meeting with Mutt Lange and the explosion of success that followed, through Come On Over becoming one of the best-selling albums in history, through the devastating loss of her voice to Lyme disease, through the shattering betrayal of her husband and best friend, through the unlikely romance with Frederick Thibault, through the surgery and the hard work to reclaim her voice, through the triumphant comeback and the ongoing career that refuses to quit. That's not just a story. That's an epic, a testament to human resilience and the power of refusing to accept defeat. Shania Twain's life reads like it was written by someone trying to create the most dramatic, inspiring biography possible, except it's all real. Every bit of it actually happened. And the woman at the center of it all is still here, still creating, still performing, still inspiring millions of people around the world. So the next time you hear, "Man, I Feel Like a Woman," or "You're Still the One," or any of Shania's other massive hits, remember the story behind the music. Remember the little girl singing in bars to help her family survive. Remember the teenager raising her siblings after their parents died. Remember the woman who lost everything and refused to stay down. Remember that Shania Twain isn't just a great singer or a successful artist. She's a survivor, a fighter, a living example of what's possible when talent meets determination meets unbreakable resilience. Her story isn't just entertainment. It's a masterclass in overcoming the impossible, and proof that no matter how many times life knocks you down, you can get back up and reclaim your power if you refuse to quit.